Hey guys, tonight we are going to explore the strange and bland foods of the German home front. Picture yourself in a quiet Berlin apartment in, say, late August of 1939. The air is warm and heavy, smelling of linden trees and the faint, distant scent of coal smoke. Sunlight streams through the tall windows of your clean, orderly kitchen, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. That feeling of deep, boring, wonderful peace. Don't get used to it. You are, at this moment, living in the last few days of blissful ignorance, on the very precipice of a world where a simple potato will become a national hero and coffee will be a distant, bitter memory. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I invite you to leave a comment sharing where in the world you're tuning in from and what time of day it is for you. It's always warming to know how vast our community of nocturnal historians reaches. Now, let's step back into that quiet kitchen. You open the door to your Speisekammer, your pantry, and the cool, dry air washes over you. It's a beautiful sight, a carbohydrate, lover's dream that would make a modern-day keto influencer spontaneously combust. On the shelves sit neat rows of glass jars, their contents glowing like jewels in the dim light. Plump, crimson cherries preserved in sugar syrup. Tart Spreewald gherkins floating in a cloudy brine with dill and mustard seeds. There are sacks on the floor, one of flour, fine and white, and another of sugar, its crystals sparkling. From a hook on the ceiling hangs a smoked metwurst, its skin wrinkled and dark, promising rich, fatty goodness. A small wheel of Tilsiter cheese sits on a wooden board, wrapped in cloth, its aroma sharp and tangy. In a ceramic crock, a generous amount of golden butter waits to be spread thickly on a slice of dense, dark rye bread. This pantry is your fortress of flavor, a testament to German efficiency and a love for hearty, substantial food. You take for granted the simple pleasure of a Sunday roast, the comforting ritual of Kaffee und Kuchen afternoon coffee, and a slice of rich cake, heavy with cream and fruit. Life is measured and predictable. You go to work, you come home, you eat a proper dinner. On the radio, there are speeches. There is talk of national pride, of securing Germany's future, of rectifying past injustices. You listen, perhaps with a flicker of concern, but the words are abstract, distant. They don't feel as real as the weight of the potato sack in your hands or the sizzle of onions in a pan. But the government has been planning for this. Long before the first shots are fired, the bureaucracy has been at work, calculating calories, assessing agricultural output, and designing a system of control. This isn't a reaction to a sudden crisis. It's a premeditated, chillingly methodical preparation for a long, hard struggle. And on the 27th of August, 1939, just days before the invasion of Poland officially begins the war, the announcement comes. The Reichskarte für Lebensmittel, the Reich Food Card, is introduced. It's just a piece of paper for now, handed out with solemn efficiency. A grid of little squares, each a tiny promise of a future, diminished portion. The official line is that these are just temporary, precautionary measures to ensure fairness and stability. A bit like when your friend says they'll just have one drink. You know deep down where this is going. Historians still debate just how aware the average German citizen was of the true implications of these first ration cards. Was it seen as a temporary inconvenience, or the first toll of a bell that could not be unrung? For now, you hold the card in your hand, its sharp corners and official stamps feeling alien. It doesn't seem possible that this flimsy document will soon hold more power over your daily life than the money in your wallet. You look back at your pantry, at the hanging sausage and the jars of fruit. They no longer look like simple food. They look like treasure. They look like time running out. You close the pantry door, and the click of the latch sounds unnervingly final. The era of abundance is over. It just doesn't know it yet. You take a deep breath of the linden-scented air, trying to commit the feeling of normalcy to memory. It's a flavor you will soon forget. The next morning, the linden-scented air feels different. It's thinner, less comforting. You walk down the familiar street, but the rhythm is off. The confident stride of your neighbors has been replaced by a more purposeful, slightly anxious shuffle. In your coat pocket, your new ration book, the Reichskarte, feels both flimsy and impossibly heavy. It's an instruction manual for a life you don't yet know how to live. You arrive at your local grocer, a small shop run by a portly, usually cheerful man named Herr Schmidt. But today, there's a new feature on the pavement outside his door. A queue, a quiet, orderly, deeply German line of people, clutching their own ration books like prayer books. You take your place, the silence broken only by the rustle of paper and the distant clang of a tram. This isn't a line of excitement like one for concert tickets. It's a line of sober necessity. When it's finally your turn, you step into the shop. The air inside is cool and smells faintly of sawdust and vinegar, but something is missing. The usual abundance is gone. The shelves aren't empty. Not yet, but they are curated. There are gaps where pyramids of canned goods once stood. The counter where the cheeses used to sit now holds only a single, sad-looking block. Herr Schmidt doesn't greet you with his usual booming Guten Morgen. He just gives you a tired nod, his eyes scanning the book you place on the counter. And now, you begin your first lesson in the colorful bureaucracy of survival. The system, you learn, is a masterpiece of Teutonic organization. It's like the world's most depressing loyalty program, where the rewards are just the basic components of existence. Your book is a specific color, which dictates your station in the national food hierarchy. You have the standard red card for a normal Verbraucher, a normal consumer. It's the baseline, the bog-standard package. Children get pink cards, with slightly different allowances for milk. But the ones everyone covets are the darker-colored cards for workers. A Langarbeiter, someone working long hours, gets a grey card with a bit more bread and fat. The true VIPs, the holders of the platinum card of the rationing world, are the Schwerarbeiter, the heavy manual labourers. Their dark blue card grants them significantly more calories. To qualify for one of those, you imagine you'd have to be personally assembling a U-boat with a screwdriver, or perhaps single-handedly digging a new canal. For now, you are just a normal red-carded citizen. You point to the small wedge of butter. A little of that, please. Herr Schmidt sighs and looks at your card. He flips to the section marked fat. It's a grid of tiny squares, each with a minuscule number on it, with a pair of small, sharp scissors that now live permanently on his counter. He carefully snips coupon number 7, a tiny square representing 62.5 grams of butter. The coupon is a flimsy scrap of paper, but it's the key. Without it, the butter is just an object on his shelf. He then weighs out your portion with painstaking accuracy. Not a gram more, not a gram less. You ask for some sugar, and the ritual is repeated. Snip, weigh, wrap. One of the strangest rules you discover is that the coupons are only valid for a specific 4-week period printed on the cover. They don't roll over. It's a fiendishly clever system, designed to prevent even the smallest amount of personal hoarding, creating a quiet, simmering anxiety as the end of the month approaches. You can picture the frantic bartering in the final days. I'll trade you my last 50 grams of sugar for your leftover 100 grams of bread coupon. Historians are divided on the mood of these early months. Was this meticulous system a source of comfort, a sign that the government had a plan and would provide for everyone equally? Or was it seen as a profound intrusion, a daily, state-sanctioned reminder of individual powerlessness? For you, it just feels strange. You leave the shop not with what you wanted, but with what your coupons allowed. In your bag is a small, hard packet of butter, a little paper cone of sugar, and a loaf of bread that you didn't even need a coupon for not yet, anyway. You walk home, the weight of your purchases laughably light. You haven't gone hungry, but the freedom is gone. The simple act of buying food has become a transaction not with a shopkeeper, but with the state itself. Every snip of those scissors is a reminder that your pantry, your kitchen, and your stomach are no longer entirely your own. They belong to the war effort now. You get home and unwrap your loaf of bread. In these first weeks, it still looks and feels like proper bread. It has a decent crust, a respectable crumb. You might even toast a slice, spread it with your precisely portioned butter, and feel a sense of normalcy. But this is a fleeting illusion. As the war grinds on, the most basic staple of the German diet, the foundation of every meal, begins a slow, sad transformation. It's like watching a beloved old friend fall into a gradual decline. The first change you notice is the color. Week by week, the bread you buy gets a little less golden brown and a little more grayish. The government, in its infinite wisdom, has decreed that wheat flour is too valuable to be used on its own for the civilian population. The Wehrmacht needs the good stuff. So, your friendly local baker is now mandated to start mixing in other grains. First, it's rye, which is fine. Roggenbrot, rye bread, is a German classic, after all. But the percentage of rye keeps creeping up, making the bread denser, heavier, and sourer. Then, things start getting more creative, and not in a good way. The bakers are instructed to add Krumenmehl, which sounds wholesome but is essentially just breadcrumbs recycled from old, stale loaves. It's a closed-loop system of mediocrity. Stale bread is ground down to be put into new bread, which will in turn go stale faster and be ground down again. It's the circle of life. If the circle of life was designed by a committee focused solely on resource management, soon, even that isn't enough. The great German bread experiment begins in earnest. The next ingredient to make its debut is the potato. Flakes or flour from boiled potatoes are mixed into the dough. This adds moisture and bulk, but it also gives the bread a slightly gummy, damp texture that never fully goes away. It's a bit like eating a sponge that wishes it were a sandwich. You find yourself chewing a single bite for what feels like an eternity. This new concoction is given a name that's a masterpiece of propaganda: Kriegsbrot, war bread. It's not just bread, it's a patriotic duty. To complain about the Kriegsbrot is to complain about the war effort itself. Posters appear showing heroic soldiers sharing their own dark bread, with slogans like, "Our daily bread is our daily weapon." You try to feel patriotic as you gnaw on your slice, but mostly you just feel like your jaw is getting a strenuous workout. The situation becomes a quiet, running joke. You might hear a neighbor whisper, "I hear next week's Kriegsbrot will be 30% potato, 20% rye, and 50% righteous indignation." Of course, you'd never say that too loudly. The walls have ears, and a defeatist attitude about bread could be interpreted as defeatism about the state. But the innovation doesn't stop with potatoes. As the British naval blockade tightens its grip, cutting off imported grains, the government gets even more desperate for fillers. Historians still marvel at the sheer range of substances that were legally considered acceptable additives to German bread during the war. We're talking about pea flour, which gave the bread a peculiar greenish tint and a faint, sweetish taste. Then came bean flour, and then, the true sign of desperation, wood pulp. Not chunks of wood, of course, but finely ground cellulose, or wholesmel. It was pure, indigestible fiber. It had zero nutritional value, but it bulked up the loaf. Eating this bread was an act of sheer willpower. It was dry, it was coarse, and it tasted faintly of sawdust. Because, well, it was. By 1942, the standard civilian loaf, known unofficially as Einheitsbrot, unity bread, was a sorry spectacle. It was a dark, almost black, brick-like object that could probably be used for home defense. Slicing it required a sharp knife and a strong wrist. It was so dense that if you dropped a slice, you'd be more worried about the floor than the bread. And the taste? It tasted of necessity. It was the flavor of a nation making do, of scraping the bottom of the barrel and then grinding the barrel itself into flour. You learn to toast it until it's rock hard, then soak it in your ersatz coffee just to make it palatable. Remember that fine, white flour in your pantry from what feels like a lifetime ago? It's a ghost now, a forgotten luxury. This dense, grey, sawdust-infused brick is your daily bread. And you are, in a strange way, grateful for it, because it's better than no bread at all. The degradation of your daily bread is a slow, grinding disappointment. But the quest for one particular ingredient becomes a near obsession, a daily drama played out in every kitchen across the Reich. That ingredient is fat, fett. The word itself takes on a mythical quality. Butter, lard, margarine, even a spoonful of cooking oil, these are no longer mere recipe components. They are the currency of flavor, the fuel of satiety, the very essence of what makes a meal feel like a meal and not just a collection of boiled vegetables. Your red ration card grants you a pitifully small amount of fat per week. At the beginning of the war, it might be around 270 grams, but as the years wear on, that number shrinks relentlessly. That allotment has to cover everything: the butter for your Kriegsbrot, the oil for frying your potatoes, the lard for baking, if you can even dream of such a thing. You quickly learn to treat every gram like a precious jewel. When you get your weekly butter ration, a small, hard, pale yellow block, you don't just throw it in a dish, you cradle it, you guard it. The ritual of cooking changes completely. Before the war, you might have generously greased a pan with a hearty dollop of schmaltz, lard. Now, you perform a delicate operation. You take a piece of waxed paper, rub it firmly on your butter ration until it picks up a greasy sheen, and then you wipe that paper meticulously around the inside of your pan. The sizzle is weak, almost apologetic, but it's a sizzle nonetheless. Every drop is sacred. After frying potatoes, you don't wash the pan. Oh no, you wipe it clean with a slice of bread to soak up every last molecule of remaining grease. That bread is the best tasting thing you'll eat all day. This scarcity creates a new kind of household ingenuity. You start saving everything. The skim of fat off the top of a thin broth is carefully spooned off and saved in a little jar. If you are lucky enough to get a piece of meat with a sliver of fat on it, you trim that sliver off before cooking. You render it down in a tiny pan, the smell filling your apartment with a glorious, forbidden aroma. The resulting thimbleful of liquid gold is stored away for a special occasion, like a birthday or a national holiday. The government, aware that a fat-deprived population is a miserable one, launches campaigns encouraging you to do your part in the fat gap, Fettlücke battle. School children are organized into collection drives, going door to door with tins to collect any leftover cooking grease. They also collect fruit, pitchery, plum, and apricot stones. These are sent to special factories where, through a complex industrial process, a tiny amount of oil can be extracted. The resulting oil is bitter and not particularly pleasant, but it is fat. One of the more peculiar footnotes of the war is the national obsession with these fruit stones. People would save them all year. It was a patriotic duty, a small act of defiance against the blockade. Historians often point to the fat ration as one of the key psychological hardships of the home front. It wasn't just about calories. It was about the loss of a fundamental comfort. A meal without fat is unsatisfying. It leaves you feeling hollow no matter how much potato and bread you've eaten. It's a constant, nagging reminder of deprivation. The search for fat leads people to desperate measures. Some try to render fat from fish, filling their apartment blocks with an unholy stench for very little reward. There's an ongoing academic debate about the black market's role in fat distribution. Was it a lifeline for those with connections, or a dangerous enterprise that only a few dared to engage in? For you, it's a world of whispers. You hear stories of farmers who will trade a whole ham for a new set of tires, of people who have a cousin who can get them a block of real butter for an astronomical price. But for the average citizen, such things are a fantasy. Your reality is the weekly ration, the careful wiping of the pan, the saving of fruit pits. You dream of fat. You dream of the satisfying sizzle of an onion in a generous pool of shimmering lard. You dream of spreading butter so thickly on your bread that you can see your teeth marks in it. You wake up, and the dream evaporates, leaving only the cold, hard reality of your tiny, precious, weekly ration. It's a hunger that water and bread can't fill. The gnawing, hollow feeling left by the fat deficit follows you into the morning. It's a quiet ache that the heaviest slice of Kriegsbrot can't seem to soothe. In the pre-war world, there was a simple, effective remedy for this kind of spiritual and physical lethargy: coffee. The memory of it is almost painful in its clarity. The rich, dark, intoxicating aroma that would fill the kitchen, a smell that promised clarity, energy, and civilization in a cup. You remember the satisfying rasp of the hand grinder, the gurgle of the percolator, the dark, steaming liquid pouring into your favorite porcelain cup. That memory is a ghost that haunts your morning ritual. Because of course, there is no coffee. The coffee bean, that magical little seed from exotic, faraway lands like Brazil or Ethiopia, is a casualty of the blockade, an impossible luxury. But a German morning without a hot, dark, bitter beverage is simply not a German morning. The routine is too deeply ingrained to be abandoned. So, the state, in its endless, intrusive foresight, has provided an alternative, a substitute, an ersatz. You open a tin on your shelf. It's not from a fancy Hamburg importer. It's a generic brand with a plain label. Inside, there is no fragrant whole bean treasure. There is a coarse, dark brown, granular substance. This is your ersatzkaffee, and its contents are a testament to agricultural desperation. The primary ingredient is roasted chicory root, which provides a convincing dark color and a strong, bitter bite. To that is added roasted barley and rye, which give it a slightly malty, almost sweet undertone. If you're unlucky, your blend might also contain ground, roasted acorns, or even caramelized sugar beets. It's a coffee made from everything but coffee. The most common slang term for this concoction is muckerfuck. It sounds crude, and its origins are a source of gentle linguistic debate among Germans. The most charming and widely accepted theory is that it's a German phonetic spelling of the French phrase mocker faux, fake mockar term, that supposedly dates back to the Napoleonic Wars, another time when blockades made real coffee a rarity. It's a funny thought. For over a century, Germans have been perfecting the art of a beverage whose very name means imitation. You spoon the dark granules into your pot and add boiling water. An aroma fills the kitchen, but it's not the one from your memories. It's not bad, exactly. It's earthy, rooty, with a hint of burnt sugar. It's the ghost of coffee, the echo of a smell. It's like hearing your favorite song played on a kazoo. The notes are vaguely there, but the soul is missing. You pour the dark liquid into your cup. It looks the part. It's black, it steams, it sits in the cup with a certain authority, but its relationship to actual coffee is purely circumstantial. The first sip is always a small moment of readjustment. The bitterness is there. Yes, a sharp, chicory-driven bitterness that shocks the tongue. But behind it, there's nothing. No depth, no complexity, no warm, chocolatey notes. And most importantly, there is no caffeine. This is the ultimate betrayal of the Ersatzkaffee. It performs the visual and gustatory ritual of coffee, but it fails at its primary mission. Drinking a cup of muckafuck to wake you up is like trying to start a car by shouting "vroom" at it. Historians and sociologists still debate the true psychological function of Ersatzkaffee. Was it a brilliant piece of social engineering, a way to maintain a crucial daily ritual and thus preserve a sense of normalcy and morale on the home front? Or was it a form of mass delusion, a daily, self-inflicted reminder of deprivation, where every bitter, caffeine-free sip reinforced the nation's isolation from the wider world? The government, for its part, promotes it as a health benefit. Propaganda posters praise the virtues of this German coffee, free from the nerve, jangling foreign toxins of the real thing. It's patriotic, it's wholesome, it builds national character. You try to reflect on your strengthened national character as you take another sip, but mostly you just wish you could feel your eyelids open a little wider. You've learned to add your tiny ration of sugar, or more likely, a saccharin tablet that gives it a strange, metallic aftertaste. You dip your dense Kriegsbrot into the liquid to soften it. The two fakes, bread and coffee, come together in a symphony of wartime mediocrity. And you drink it. You drink it every morning, because the ritual is what matters. The warmth in your hands, the bitter taste, the simple act of starting the day. It's not coffee, but it's what you have, and the day must begin. Your morning cup of muckafuck has done its job, which is to say it has warmed your hands and passed the time, but it has offered no real spark, no fuel for the day ahead. As midday approaches, a deeper, more primal hunger begins to make itself known. It's a craving for substance, for protein, for something savory and satisfying. In the Germany of your memory, the answer to this call was simple and glorious. Wurst, sausage. The word itself is a cornerstone of the national cuisine, a source of fierce regional pride. A smoky Thüringer Rostbratwurst, a delicate white Münchner Weisswurst, a coarse, peppery Pinkelwurst from the north. 1,000 varieties, 1,000 traditions. You remember walking past the local Metzgerei, the butcher shop, its window hung with glistening links and plump salamis, the air around it thick with the scent of smoked meat and spices. Going to the butcher wasn't a chore, it was an errand of joyful anticipation. But now, as you approach that same shop, the feeling is one of anxiety. The window display is sparse, almost theatrical in its emptiness. A few lonely-looking links hang there, more for show than for sale. Your meat ration is the most prized and restrictive part of your ration book. It starts at a seemingly reasonable 500 grams per week, but that includes the weight of any bones. And like all other rations, it is destined to shrink. Soon it will be 300 grams, then 250. This tiny amount has to cover any and all meat for your family's meals. A proper Sunday roast becomes an impossible fantasy. A single schnitzel is a decadent luxury. So, the bulk of your meat ration is channeled into the one thing that can stretch a small amount of meat into something more, the sausage. But the sausage, too, has been conscripted into the war effort, and its composition is now a state secret you'd probably rather not know. You watch the butcher, a man whose hands were once skilled in the art of fine charcuterie, now reduced to a mere distributor of state-mandated protein units. He takes your book, snips the precious Fleisch coupon, and hands you your portion. It doesn't look like the robust, hearty bratwurst of your memory. It's paler, softer, with a strange, uniform smoothness. This is the Einheitswurst, the unity sausage. Its name is meant to evoke a sense of shared national purpose, but most people know what it really means. A sausage unified in its profound mediocrity. The ingredients list, were it ever printed, would read like a quartermaster's inventory of whatever was left over. There is some meat in there, Yes, usually pork, often the less desirable cuts. But the meat is no longer the star of the show, it's a supporting actor. The main ingredient, the bulk of the sausage, is now bread. Specifically, stale Kriegsbrot, ground into crumbs. So, you are essentially eating bread stuffed inside a casing to accompany the bread you'll be eating it with. The other primary filler is water. Lots and lots of water, bound together with potato starch. One of the more darkly comic tidbits of the era was the unofficial classification of sausages by their water content. Some were so watery they were known to burst in the pan, releasing a pale, starchy slurry. You take your Unity sausages home and prepare to cook them. You use your precious fat-smeared paper to grease the pan, but it doesn't matter much. When the sausages hit the heat, there is no confident sizzling roar. There is a meek, pathetic hiss. They don't brown and crisp up. They sort of sweat. They turn a sad, mottled grey, and their skin, which should be snappy, becomes loose and wrinkled. The aroma is not of spiced, grilled pork, but of boiled bread and vague, unidentifiable seasonings. The first bite is the real moment of truth. The texture is all wrong. It's not firm and meaty, but soft and mushy, like a savoury porridge. The flavour is bland, starchy, and utterly forgettable. It is sausage in form only. It is a ghost of a sausage, a placeholder for a memory. Historians continue to explore the psychological impact of this. Was the debasement of the worst a more profound blow to German morale than the ersatz coffee or the sawdust bread? Bread is a staple, but the sausage is a symbol of identity, of Gemütlichkeit, that untranslatable German concept of coziness and good cheer. To have that symbol of festivity and regional pride reduced to a watery, bread-filled tube was a quiet, daily humiliation. You eat it, of course. You eat it with a mound of boiled potatoes and a dollop of mustard, because the mustard is strong and helps to mask the blandness. You chew the mushy contents and tell yourself it is meat. It is protein. It is fuel. But you know it isn't. It's just another component in the great national illusion. Along with your Muckerfuck and your Kriegsbrot, your Einheitswurst completes the holy trinity of wartime ersatz cuisine. You have had your morning ritual and your midday meal, and you have consumed nothing that was truly, authentically, what it claimed to be. The watery, bread-filled sausage has been eaten, the plate is clean, but you are not satisfied. There's a persistent, hollow space that the ersatz meal couldn't touch. This is the new normal, a state of being technically fed, but perpetually unsated. Your body craves calories, density, something to anchor it against the constant, low-grade anxiety of the war. And in this desperate culinary landscape, one hero rises from the soil to answer the call. It is not a glamorous hero. It is lumpy, brown, and covered in dirt. It is the potato. The humble Kartoffel becomes the undisputed king of the German wartime plate. Its greatest virtue is its sheer, unglamorous abundance. While grains are contested and meat is a luxury, the hardy potato can be grown almost anywhere, in vast fields or a tiny allotment. Crucially, for a long time, it remains off the ration book entirely, or the ration is so generous as to be almost meaningless. It is the one thing you can eat until you are truly, physically full, and the state makes sure you know it. The potato is no longer just a vegetable. It is the subject of a relentless, nationwide propaganda campaign. It's like the world's most boring celebrity endorsement. Posters appear on walls and in trams, not with images of roaring tanks, but with heroic, anthropomorphized potatoes. You might see a cartoon potato wearing a steel helmet, flexing a starchy bicep with a slogan underneath. Sieg durch Kartoffeln, victory through potatoes. Another poster shows a smiling, rosy-cheeked family gathered around a steaming mountain of boiled potatoes. Their faces aglow with wholesome, tuber-fueled joy. The government issues recipe pamphlets by the millions, distributed to every household. 50 ways with potatoes. The patriotic potato. Potatoes for health and strength. These booklets are a masterclass in making a virtue of necessity. They offer endless variations on a single, monotonous theme. You learn to make potato soup, thin and watery but hot. You make potato pancakes, Kartoffelpuffer, but without the traditional eggs or apple sauce. They are sad, pale discs, fried in the faintest sheen of ersatz fat. You make Bratkartoffeln, fried potatoes, but they don't get crispy and golden. They steam and soften in the pan, becoming a pale, greasy mush. The potato insinuates itself into every dish. Remember the Kriegsbrot? It's bulked out with potato flour. The Einheitswurst, held together with potato starch. You can make a cake from grated potato, sweetened with saccharin. You can try to make croquettes by mashing them with breadcrumbs and herbs. The potato is the culinary glue holding the entire fragile system together. This state-mandated love affair with the potato isn't entirely new. It reminds you of the stories about the Prussian king, Frederick the Great, and his Kartoffelbefehl, his potato command of 1756. This is one of those quirky historical facts that suddenly feels relevant. Facing famine and a skeptical peasantry who thought the lumpy nightshade was poisonous and fit only for animal feed, Frederick launched a campaign of his own. He planted a royal field of potatoes and had it heavily guarded, pretending it was a valuable, exclusive crop. The curious peasants, assuming anything so well guarded must be worth stealing, snuck in at night and pilfered the tubers to plant in their own fields. It was a brilliant piece of reverse psychology. The current government's methods are less subtle, more about brute force repetition, but the principle is the same. You will learn to love the potato. Historians debate whether this relentless potato propaganda was ultimately successful. Did it foster a sense of shared sacrifice and resilience, turning the humble tuber into a genuine symbol of national identity and defiance against the blockade? Or did it create a profound potato fatigue, a deep, soul-crushing weariness from eating the same bland, starchy food day after day, meal after meal, making the potato a symbol of the war's oppressive monotony? For you, it's both. On the one hand, you are grateful. The dull thud of potatoes tumbling into a pot of boiling water is a comforting sound. It's the sound of a full stomach. But as you sit down to yet another plate of boiled potatoes, perhaps with a thin gravy made from water and bouillon powder, the gratitude is tinged with resignation. The meal is filling, but it is joyless. It is sustenance without pleasure. The potato fills the void in your stomach, but not the one in your spirit. And the starchy, earthy taste lingers on your tongue, the official flavor of survival. The heavy, starchy comfort of the potatoes sits in your stomach, a dense ballast against the rolling sea of hunger. You are full, technically. Your body has received calories and bulk. Yet, a ghost craving remains, a high, thin note of dissatisfaction that the savory, earthy meal could not silence. It's the desire for a final, pleasant note, the desire for sweetness. In the world before, this was the moment for dessert. Not necessarily every day, but often enough. A small bowl of fruit compote, a slice of simple pound cake, or just a lump of sugar stirred into your post-meal muckafuck. But sugar, like coffee, is a ghost at this feast. Grown in tropical climates from cane, or extracted in vast quantities from beets, in fields that are now needed for other, more essential crops, sugar has become one of the most tightly controlled commodities. Your weekly ration is laughably small, a mere whisper of sweetness. You might get 250 grams at the start of the war, but that number plummets. Soon, It's a tiny paper packet containing just enough to lightly sweeten a few cups of your ersatz coffee, or to be sprinkled sparingly over a child's porridge as a special treat. You learn to conserve it, to use it one crystal at a time. The loss of sugar is profound. It's not just the taste, it's the chemistry. Sugar is the foundation of baking, the magic that creates tender cakes and crisp biscuits. It's the agent of caramelization, the source of that beautiful golden brown color and rich, complex flavor. Without it, the world of baking collapses. The rich tradition of German Kuchen and Torten is put on indefinite hold. But humanity's craving for sweetness is a powerful, primal force. And where nature and trade fail, science steps in with a strange and potent substitute. You are introduced to a tiny vial or a small, flat tin. Inside are minuscule white tablets, looking more like medicine than a foodstuff. This is saccharin. The story of saccharin is one of those wonderful, accidental discoveries that dot the history of science. It's a classic mainstream fact of food chemistry. It wasn't invented for the war. It had been around since 1879. A chemist named Konstantin Follberg, working at Johns Hopkins University in the United States, was researching coal tar derivatives. One evening, he went home from the lab and sat down to dinner, noticing that the bread roll he was eating was unbelievably sweet. He realized the sweetness wasn't in the bread, but on his own hands, which he had neglected to wash properly after his work. He had stumbled upon a chemical compound hundreds of times sweeter than sugar. It was a miracle born from poor lab hygiene. Now, this chemical miracle is your only recourse. You take one of the tiny tablets and drop it into your steaming cup of chicory barley brew. It fizzes for a moment, a barely audible hiss, and dissolves. You stir the liquid and take a tentative sip. The first sensation is a shockwave of pure, unadulterated sweetness. A sweetness so potent it feels almost aggressive. But right behind it comes the signature of saccharin, a sharp, lingering, distinctly metallic aftertaste. It's like a promise of pleasure, followed by a chemical apology. You learn to live with this aftertaste. It becomes the new definition of sweet. You use the tablets for everything. But saccharin has a major flaw. It provides sweetness, but nothing else. You can't bake with it in the traditional sense. It doesn't provide the bulk or the texture of sugar. And most frustratingly, you cannot caramelize it. Try to heat it, and it simply breaks down, leaving you with a bitter, chemical tragedy in your pan. As the war progresses, another sweetener makes a more regular appearance. Zuckerrüben syrup, a thick, dark, treacly syrup made from sugar beets. It's a far more rustic, brute force kind of sweetness. Unlike the clean, chemical hit of saccharin, this syrup is intensely flavored, with an earthy, almost vegetative taste. It's not for delicate applications. It becomes the go-to sweetener for things like wartime gingerbread, Lebkuchen, turning the festive biscuits a deep, almost black color and giving them a powerful, molasses-like flavor. Historians and nutritionists still debate the source of this wartime craving for sweetness. Was it a simple biological need for quick energy in a calorie-deficient diet? Or was it something deeper, psychological search for comfort? A small, controllable moment of pleasure in a world of overwhelming bitterness and uncertainty. For you, it feels like the latter. The world outside is chaotic and frightening. Your meals are a monotonous rotation of bland, starchy staples. That tiny hit of artificial sweetness, however flawed, is a punctuation mark, a brief, fleeting moment of something other than necessity. It's a small act of self-care. You sit with your mug of chemically sweetened muckafuck, the metallic taste coating your tongue. It's not the warm, round, comforting sweetness of sugar. It's a thin, sharp, ersatz sweetness for a thin, sharp, ersatz world. The metallic tang of the saccharin fades from your tongue, but a deeper kind of malnourishment lingers. Your stomach may be full of dense Kriegsbrot and endless potatoes, but your body feels sluggish, weary. There's a craving that calories alone can't satisfy. It's a yearning for freshness, for vibrancy, for the color green. It's the cellular level cry for vitamins, for the things that make blood rich and bones strong, things that can't be synthesized in a chemical plant or manufactured from wood pulp. You start to see the world differently. Your gaze, once fixed on shop windows and the contents of your neighbor's shopping bags, now drops to the ground. You find yourself scanning the small patches of earth that persist even in the heart of the city, the verges along the tram tracks, the neglected corners of the local park, the rubble-strewn lots where buildings once stood. These places, once just scenery to be ignored, are now potential larders. Weeds are no longer an eyesore. They are a possibility. The government, ever present and ever practical, is way ahead of you. They understand that a population suffering from scurvy is not a productive or patriotic population. And so, a new wave of propaganda begins. Not posters this time, but small, unassuming pamphlets begin to circulate. The titles are straightforward. Names like Esper Wildkräuter, a guide to edible wild herbs, or Verwertung von Wildgemüse, which details the utilization of wild vegetables. They are simple, illustrated guides, turning the desperate act of foraging into something that feels organized, scientific, and even a little patriotic. It's like a national scavenger hunt designed by a very serious botanist with a limited budget. Armed with this new knowledge, you venture out. You carry a cloth bag and perhaps a pair of old gloves. You feel a bit conspicuous at first, kneeling down to inspect a patch of weeds while others rush by on their errands. But you soon realize you are not alone. You see other women, and even children, doing the same, their heads bent in quiet concentration, consulting their own well-thumbed pamphlets. This is the original urban foraging trend, stripped of all its modern, artisanal romance, and boiled down to its raw, essential core. Your primary target, the star of the government pamphlets, is the common stinging nettle, the plant everyone knows as brennessel. It grows everywhere, in defiant, dark green clumps. It's an intimidating plant, guarded by its tiny, stinging hairs. But the pamphlets assure you it is a powerhouse of vitamins and iron. You learn to harvest it carefully, with gloved hands, pinching the tops where the leaves are young and tender. The slight tingle you feel even through the fabric is a reminder that nature does not give up its gifts easily. Another prize is the dandelion, the Löwenzahn. For years you regarded it as a nuisance in any garden, but now you see it for what it is, a multi-purpose survival kit. The young, tender leaves can be used as a bitter green in a salad. The root, the pamphlets tell you, can be dried, roasted, and ground to be added to your muckafuck, adding yet another layer of earthy bitterness to the brew. The list goes on. You learn to identify chickweed, the delicate vogelmeer, and the tangy sorrel, the sauerampfer, whose lemony flavor is a shocking delight to a palate accustomed to blandness. In the autumn, you join the children gathering rosehips, the bright red hagebutten from the wild rose bushes. These are brought home and boiled for hours to create a thick, vitamin C-rich syrup that is doled out by the spoonful as a tonic against colds. There's an ongoing debate among historians about the true nutritional impact of these foraging campaigns. Did the handful of nettles or dandelions an urban family could gather truly make a difference to their overall health, or was it more of a psychological balm? Did it simply give people a sense of agency, a feeling that they were actively fighting back against the deprivation, even if the tangible benefits were minimal? Back in your kitchen, you rinse the grit from your harvest of nettle tops. You plunge them into a pot of boiling water, and a minor miracle occurs. The heat instantly neutralizes their sting, and the fierce, protective plant wilts into a soft, dark green mass. You drain them and chop them, mixing the slightly irony, earthy greens into a mash of boiled potatoes. For the first time in months, your plate has a splash of genuine, vibrant color. You take a bite. It doesn't taste like a gourmet delicacy. It tastes of earth, of rain, of resilience. It's the taste of something real, something you found and gathered yourself. It's a small, personal victory against the great, grey, grinding machinery of the war. It's the taste of survival. The foraged nettles and dandelions provide a welcome, if meager, boost of vitamins, but they do little to satisfy the deep, gnawing craving for protein. The watery, bread-filled Einheitswurst is a mockery, and your weekly meat ration is a cruel joke, shrinking with every passing month. The hunger for something substantial, something that feels like it's truly nourishing your body, becomes a constant, background hum of discontent. And so, you begin to consider a far more audacious and far more dangerous form of urban agriculture. Your gaze shifts from the patches of weeds in the park to the forgotten spaces within your own apartment building. The damp, dark cellar, the dusty, unused attic, the small enclosed balcony. These are no longer just storage spaces, they are potential farms. The idea is thrilling and terrifying in equal measure. Raising your own source of meat, right here in the middle of the city, is a profound act of defiance. It is also, you are keenly aware, highly illegal. The government has nationalized the food supply. Every animal, every bushel of wheat, every potato in the ground officially belongs to the war effort, to be distributed according to the master plan. To raise and slaughter your own animal is to steal from the Reich itself. It's not just a violation of a rationing ordinance, it's an act of sedition. But hunger is a powerful motivator. The animal of choice for this clandestine urban farming is not a chicken, which is too loud, or a pig, which is far too large and conspicuous. It is the humble rabbit, the Kaninchen. Rabbits have several distinct advantages for the aspiring secret farmer. They are quiet, they are small, and can be housed in a compact hutch. And most importantly, they breed well like rabbits. A single pair can produce a surprising amount of meat over the course of a year. So, the plan begins. The first step is acquiring the breeding pair. This is done through whispers and contacts, a transaction that feels more like a spy dropping off secret documents than buying a pet. You trade for them. Perhaps you have a small family heirloom, a piece of silver you've been saving. Or maybe you have a connection who owes you a favor. One evening, a man delivers a small wiggling sack. Inside are two nervous, twitching-nosed rabbits. You set them up in the darkest corner of your cellar, or perhaps in a purpose-built enclosure on your balcony, shielded from prying eyes by a carefully draped blanket. Now, you have a new set of secrets to keep. The first is the smell. The faint but distinct aroma of rabbit droppings and hay must be managed, masked by the ambient city smells of coal, smoke, and damp concrete. The second is the feed. You can't just go to a shop and buy rabbit pellets. You must forage for their food, just as you forage for your own, gathering dandelions, clover, and other greens from parks and wastelands, hoping no one asks why you are collecting such large bundles of weeds. The most stressful part is the noisy, or rather, the potential for it. Every small thump from the hutch in the middle of the night sends a jolt of adrenaline through you. You live in fear of a curious neighbor, or worse, the blockwart, the local block warden, a party official tasked with keeping an eye on the residents and reporting any suspicious activities. A single complaint could bring a devastating inspection. Historians and memoirists offer fascinating, if anecdotal, evidence of how widespread this practice was. Some cellars in Berlin apartment blocks were said to house entire secret ecosystems of rabbit hutches, their owners forming a silent conspiracy of shared risk and reward. There's a persistent, though likely apocryphal, funny story that circulates about a blockwart who comes to inspect a cellar, smells something suspicious, and asks, "What is that smell?" The quick-thinking resident replies, "It is my husband's new hobby. He is experimenting with mushroom cultivation. The day comes when you must harvest." It is a grim, necessary task, performed quickly and quietly, with no sense of ceremony. It is not the work of a farmer, but the work of a survivor. And the result, after the hushed and hurried work is done, is a small, pale carcass. It feels impossibly precious. This is not a ration from the state. This is meat you have created through your own ingenuity, risk, and effort. You cook it simply, roasting it with herbs you've grown in a window box. The aroma that fills your small apartment is intoxicating. A rich, genuine smell of roasting meat that you haven't experienced in years. It is the smell of rebellion. The family gathers around the table, and you eat in near silence, savoring every tender, flavorful bite. It is more than just a meal. It is a sacrament. It's a taste of freedom, a reminder of a world where food wasn't a weapon or a tool of the state, but something to be shared and celebrated. For a brief moment, you are not just surviving, you are living. The ghost of that glorious illicit rabbit feast still lingers in the air of your apartment the next morning, a faint, savory memory that you try to hold on to. But it's a fragile ghost, easily banished, because today is the first Sunday of the month. And on the first Sunday of the month, your menu is not your own. It is dictated by the state. It is Eintopsonntag, One Pot Sunday. The concept is, on its surface, a noble one, a masterpiece of social engineering and propaganda. On this day, every family in Germany, from the wealthiest industrialist to the poorest worker, is expected to forsake their traditional, often elaborate Sunday meal. Instead, everyone is to eat a simple, one-pot stew, the dish known as Eintopf. The money saved the difference in cost between, say, a pork roast with dumplings and a watery vegetable stew is then to be donated to the Winter Hilfswerk, the Winter Relief Work, a massive state-run charity that supports the poor and unemployed. It's a powerful symbol, a nation tightening its belt in unison, sharing a single humble meal to show solidarity with its neediest countrymen. So, you get to work. Into a large pot goes the familiar cast of characters. Potatoes, of course, the ever-present foundation of your diet. A few sad-looking carrots, maybe a turnip or a piece of cabbage. You add water, lots of water. If you are very lucky, you might have a small, bony piece of soup meat, or a single, sad Einheitswurst to chop up and add to the pot. But for many, it's a purely vegetarian affair. You let it all simmer for hours, until the vegetables have surrendered their individual identities and dissolved into a thick, homogeneous, greyish liquid. The smell isn't unpleasant, but it's the smell of a soup kitchen, not a home. It is the aroma of obligation. As midday approaches, just as the stew is ready, you hear it. A sharp, confident knock on your apartment door. You smooth your apron, compose your face into a pleasant, patriotic smile, and open it. Standing there are two members of the Hitler Youth, a boy and a girl, no older than 15. They are crisp in their uniforms, their faces scrubbed and shining with zealous purpose. The boy is holding a large, sealed canister with a small slot in the top. This is the crux of the whole enterprise. The donation is not optional. Heil Hitler, the boy says, his voice cracking slightly. A donation for the winter relief, for the Führer and the people. You smile warmly. Of course, we have just eaten our Eintopf. This is the ritual. You are expected to make a show of your sacrifice. You go to your purse and take out a few coins, the amount you have carefully calculated. It has to be enough to not look cheap or unpatriotic, but not so much that you can't afford your rations for the rest of the week. You drop the coins into the canister, The clatter sounds loud in the quiet hallway. The collectors nod, make a note on a list they carry, and move on to the next door. You close your own door, the smile instantly vanishing from your face. This is the central question that historians still wrestle with. Did the Eintopfentag truly create the sense of Volksgemeinschaft, the people's community that the propaganda claimed? Or was it a deeply resented, intrusive piece of political theatre? As you stand in your kitchen, you can hear the knock on your neighbour's door, hear their own practiced, cheerful exchange. You wonder if they, too, feel this strange mix of resentment and forced compliance. You ladle the stew into bowls for your family. It is hot, and it is filling, but it is profoundly joyless. The potatoes and carrots have been boiled into submission, their flavours muted into a single, bland note. It tastes of boiled water and good intentions. You eat because you must. You eat the physical manifestation of national unity. It is the opposite of the secret rabbit you ate yesterday. That was a meal of defiance, of personal agency. This is a meal of conformity. It's a weekly lesson, served up in a bowl, that your life, your kitchen, and even your Sunday dinner belong to the state. The taste is bland, but the message is clear. The enforced blandness of the Eintopfentag leaves a particularly bitter aftertaste, not just in your mouth, but in your spirit. The state has dictated your meal, taken your mandatory donation, and left you with a pot of grey, watery stew and a simmering resentment. It's this feeling of powerlessness, this constant, grinding deprivation, that pushes you to consider the shadowy world that exists just beneath the surface of official life. It's a world that runs on whispers, on furtive glances, on packages wrapped in plain brown paper. It is the world of the Schleichhandel, the black market. The black market is not a place you can just go to. There is no secret sign on a door, no hidden alleyway where merchants hawk forbidden goods. It is a network, an invisible web of connections that you must carefully, cautiously find your way into. It is a world of immense risk. Being caught engaging in black market activities is not a minor offence. It is Wirtschaftsverbrechen, an economic crime. The penalties are severe: huge fines, imprisonment, and in some cases, even the death penalty for large-scale operators. The state considers these activities a form of treason, a dagger aimed at the heart of the national war effort. But the lure is powerful. The black market promises everything the ration book denies. Real coffee, real butter, a piece of smoked bacon, a bag of white flour. These are not just foodstuffs. They are symbols of a lost world, and the desire for them is a powerful force. Your entry into this world is likely to be tentative, small. It starts with a quiet conversation with a neighbor you have learned to trust. You might mention, in a low voice, that you have an extra pair of good quality stockings you never wear. Your neighbor might mention that her brother-in-law works on a farm outside the city and sometimes has access to eggs. A few days later, a small package appears on your doorstep. Inside are 6 beautiful brown-shelled eggs. You leave the stockings, wrapped in newspaper, in the same spot. No money has changed hands. This is the most common form of the black market. A simple, direct barter system. A quiet exchange of favors. This is the Tauschhandel. Emboldened, you might get a little more adventurous. You hear a whisper that a certain tobacconist, if you use the right phrase, can get you a small amount of real coffee beans. You go to his shop, your heart pounding. You ask for your usual cigarettes, and then, in a quiet voice, you add, "Do you have anything from Hamburg?" Hamburg was Germany's main port, the historic entry point for coffee. It's a simple code. The tobacconist's eyes flicker for a moment. He might shake his head and say no, and you will know you have failed the test. Or he might give a slight, almost imperceptible nod. He'll wrap your cigarettes, but the package will feel heavier, bulkier than it should. You pay the official price and then slide an extra folded banknote across the counter. You walk out of the shop, trying to look casual, the precious, fragrant contraband burning a hole in your pocket. One of the more peculiar and dangerous areas of the black market involves something you wouldn't expect: your ration book itself. A whole sub-economy exists around the illegal trade of these little paper coupons. If your family doesn't eat much meat, for example, you might secretly sell your Fleisch coupons to a family with growing sons for a small sum of money, which you can then use to illegally buy extra bread coupons. Forgers also do a brisk trade, creating counterfeit ration books that are sold for exorbitant prices to those who are desperate or living with false papers. This is a particularly risky game, as the authorities are constantly on the lookout for such fakes. Historians have long debated the true scale and function of the black market. Was it a parasitic enterprise that siphoned off scarce resources and undermined the official system, as the Nazi government claimed? Or was it a vital, if illegal, social safety valve, a mechanism that allowed people to survive the system's harshest realities and maintain a fragile sense of normalcy? The truth, as always, is likely somewhere in between. For you, it is a source of constant, low-grade terror and exhilarating relief. Every illegal transaction is a gamble. Every knock on the door could be the Gestapo. But then, you sit in your kitchen late at night, the curtains drawn tight. You grind the real coffee beans, the forbidden aroma filling your small apartment like a prayer. You brew a cup, and as you take the first, rich, caffeinated, glorious sip, you feel a profound sense of victory. It is the taste of a successful crime, the taste of defiance, the taste of a small personal piece of your life that you have clawed back from the state. The thrill of your black market coffee fades, leaving behind the familiar, drab reality of your daily rations. The weeks turn into months, the months into years. The war grinds on, a monstrous, hungry machine devouring resources, lives, and hope. But one day, a small disruption to the monotony arrives. A package. It's a standard issue field post box, a Feldpost packet, addressed to you in a familiar, masculine scrawl. It's from your husband, or your brother, or your son, a soldier serving on one of the distant fronts. These packages are a lifeline, a tangible link to the men who have been swallowed by the war machine. They are also, you have learned, a source of culinary curiosity. While you are at home subsisting on a diet of potatoes and patriotic slogans, the soldiers of the Wehrmacht are moving through conquered lands, through the pantries and farmlands of Europe. And sometimes, they send a taste of those lands home. You open the box with a sense of trembling anticipation. Inside, nestled among the crumpled newspaper and a pair of dirty socks, you find the treasures. They are not grand luxuries. They are the simple, everyday foods of another country, things that now seem impossibly exotic. Perhaps the package has come from France. You might find a small, hard, crumbly wheel of cheese, its aroma sharp and goaty, a world away from the bland, processed cheese available at home. There might be a tin of sardines packed in oil-reel oil that you will treat with the reverence of a holy relic. Maybe there's a small, dense loaf of French bread, now stale from its journey, but still possessing a texture and flavor you had almost forgotten was possible. You run your finger over the hard crust, a physical artifact from a different, more flavorful reality. Or perhaps the package is from the East, from the vast, conquered territories of Ukraine. This is a land of incredible agricultural wealth, the breadbasket of Europe. From here, you might receive a jar of rich, dark honey, its sweetness deep and floral, completely unlike the thin, beet sugar syrup you've grown used to. There might be a slab of sallow, cured pork fat, a Ukrainian delicacy. You look at the solid, white block of pure fat, and it feels like you are looking at a bar of solid gold. This is the ultimate weapon against the fat looker, the fat gap. You will slice it paper thin and let it melt on your tongue, a wave of pure, unadulterated energy. Even the standard issue German army rations that soldiers sometimes send home feel like a feast. The Wehrmacht's tinned meat, the Fleischkonserve, while not exactly gourmet, is still actual meat, dense and savory. Their field bread, the Kommissbrot, is a dense rye loaf that, while hardy, is a significant step up from your sawdust-infused Kriegsbrot. A soldier's most prized possession, often included in these packages, is a tube of concentrated coffee extract or a packet of real coffee beans, part of their special ration designed to keep them alert. This is a gift of unimaginable value. One of the more peculiar and sought-after items that soldiers sent back from occupied lands was soap. In France and the Netherlands, they found soaps that were fragrant and rich with fats and oils, a world away from the harsh, sand-filled ersatz soap available in Germany that left your skin red and raw. These fragrant, colourful bars of soap were not just for washing. They were a reminder of a world of small, gentle luxuries. The academic debate surrounding these packages is a sensitive one. To what extent were these items liberated or requisitioned from occupied populations who were themselves starving? The letters home often gloss over this, speaking of finding things or being given them by grateful locals. The reality was undoubtedly far more complex and often brutal. The food that appeared in your kitchen was often food that had been taken from another family's table. But in this moment, sitting in your small Berlin apartment, these complex moral questions feel distant. What feels real is the object in your hand, the French cheese, the Ukrainian honey, the bar of fragrant soap. You close your eyes and inhale its scent. It is the smell of somewhere else, of a world beyond the blockade, beyond the ration cards, beyond the endless grey monotony. For a little while, you can travel, you can taste France, you can smell the Netherlands. It's a fleeting, bittersweet escape, a reminder that the world is still large and full of flavour, even if your own corner of it has become small and bland. The exotic taste of the French cheese and Ukrainian honey fades from memory, a brief, bright flash in the deepening gloom. The war, which once seemed like a series of distant, victorious marches, has turned. The news from the fronts, once triumphant, is now grim and defensive. The vast territories that once supplied those precious food parcels are being lost. The web of supply lines that fed the German war machine, and by extension, your own kitchen, is being torn apart, thread by thread. The slow, grinding deprivation of the early war years is about to give way to something far more terrifying. Real, desperate hunger. You are entering the final, brutal act of the war. This is the period that will become known as the Hunger Winter, the Hunger Winter of 1944-1945. The meticulously organized, if stingy, German rationing system begins to completely break down. The colored ration cards in your wallet become little more than symbolic pieces of paper, promises that can no longer be kept. You go to the grocer, Herr Schmidt's shop, and the queue is longer than ever, a silent, shuffling line of ghosts. But when you get to the front, there is nothing to buy. The shelves are bare, not curated, not sparse, but empty. Herr Schmidt just shakes his head, his face a mask of weary despair. Nothing today, he mutters. Maybe tomorrow, but tomorrow is the same, and the day after that. The official rations are cut again and again to levels that are no longer sustainable for human life. The bread ration shrinks to a single thin slice a day. The fat ration disappears entirely. Meat is a distant memory from another lifetime. The only thing left in any quantity is the potato, but even the great, heroic potato is becoming scarce as transport systems collapse under the weight of Allied bombing. Your world shrinks to a single, all-consuming focus, the search for calories, any calories. Your day is no longer structured by work or leisure, but by a desperate, nomadic hunt for food. You spend hours in queues for a single loaf of bread or a handful of withered turnips. The city itself, once a symbol of order and progress, is now a wasteland, a landscape of rubble and ruins. But these ruins become a new kind of foraging ground. In the bombed-out skeletons of buildings, you might find a pantry that was somehow missed by the flames, containing a forgotten jar of preserves. It's a treasure hunt, where the prize is survival. You eat things you would never have imagined eating. You learn to make rubble soup, a thin, gritty broth made by boiling weeds you've pulled from between the paving stones, thickened with a handful of plaster dust scraped from a wall for its mineral content. This is a historical fact that seems almost too grim to be real, a testament to the absolute depths of human desperation. You boil leather belts and shoe soles for hours, trying to extract some minuscule amount of gelatin and protein from them. The resulting liquid is vile, but it is warm, and it fills your stomach for a little while. The secret rabbit hutch in your cellar is long gone. The risk of discovery became too great, the feed impossible to find. Now, you hunt for different game. You see people stalking the city's pigeons, their eyes narrowed with a hunter's focus. Even the city's cats and dogs, once beloved pets, begin to disappear, victims of the all-consuming hunger. It's a silent, grim reality that no one speaks of, but everyone knows. Historians often struggle to convey the sheer, soul-crushing reality of this period. It was a time when the very fabric of society seemed to dissolve. The bonds of community, so loudly trumpeted in the Eintopstag campaigns, frayed and snapped under the immense pressure of starvation. It became every family for itself. Your neighbor was no longer a friend to share secrets with, but a competitor for the last potato in the shop. You become a ghost of your former self. Your clothes hang off your skeletal frame. Your mind is foggy, unable to focus on anything beyond the next potential meal. Your life is stripped down to its most basic, animalistic components: hunger, cold, and fear. You look in the mirror and see a stranger with hollow eyes and sunken cheeks. The person who once worried about the quality of their coffee or the freshness of their bread is gone, buried under an avalanche of deprivation. All that is left is the will to endure, to see the next sunrise, to find one more turnip, one more slice of bread, one more day of life. The war, which began with grand promises of glory and a 1,000-year Reich, has ended here, in a freezing apartment, with an empty plate and a stomach aching with a hunger that feels like it could swallow the world. The noise of the war finally ceases. The roar of planes is replaced by an unnerving silence, broken only by the wind whistling through the skeletal remains of buildings. The fighting is over. The soldiers are coming home here what's left of them. And slowly, agonizingly, help begins to arrive. The first sign of this new era comes in the form of a truck rumbling down your ruined street. It is not a Wehrmacht truck, but a foreign one, driven by soldiers in different uniforms. They are the allies, the victors, and they bring food. You stand in another queue, but this one feels different. There is a sense of disbelief, of fragile, tentative hope. You are handed a package. It might be a care package from America, or rations from the British Army. You take it with trembling hands. It feels heavy, impossibly heavy. You take it back to your apartment and open it. The contents are miraculous. A can of Spam, a small tin of processed cheese, a bar of chocolate, a packet of real, instant coffee, white sugar, a can of powdered milk. These are not gourmet foods. They are simple, industrial, mass-produced products. But to you, they are the most luxurious, decadent, wonderful things you have ever seen. You make a cup of the instant coffee, stirring in a spoonful of white sugar and a cloud of powdered milk. The taste is sweet, creamy, and completely alien. It is the taste of a world you thought had vanished forever. You fry a slice of the salty, fatty spam in a pan, and the rich, savory aroma fills your kitchen, a scent so powerful it almost makes you weep. It is the smell of peace. But the years of deprivation have left their mark, a deep, indelible scar on your body and your soul. Your relationship with food is forever changed. This is a phenomenon that historians and psychologists have studied extensively, a condition sometimes called post-starvation neurosis. You cannot bring yourself to waste a single crumb. You lick your plate clean. You save every scrap of leftover food, every twist tie, every piece of waxed paper. The ghost of the hungry winter lives in the back of your mind, a constant whispering fear that the abundance could disappear at any moment. You find you have strange, new cravings, a desperate, insatiable hunger for fat and sugar, your body trying to claw back the years of deficit. You might eat the bar of chocolate in a single, frantic sitting, feeling a wave of guilt and pleasure so intense it's overwhelming. You find that your tastes have been permanently altered. You might find that you now have a lifelong appreciation for the simple, bland taste of boiled potatoes, a taste that you associate not with deprivation, but with survival. You might find that you can never again stand the smell of chicory, a scent that triggers a deep, visceral memory of hunger and ersatz mornings. The way you run your household is different. Your pantry, once it begins to fill again, becomes a fortress. You hoard canned goods. You keep a stock of flour and sugar that is far larger than you could ever need, just in case. The idea of an empty shelf fills you with a primal, irrational terror. The German economic miracle, the Wirtschaftswunder, will bring unprecedented prosperity in the coming decades. Supermarkets will overflow with goods from around the world, but a part of you will always be that hungry person in the ruined city, scanning the ground for edible weeds. The bland and strange foods of the war were more than just a diet. They were a language. They taught you lessons in ingenuity, in resilience, in desperation, and in the quiet, soul-crushing reality of totalitarianism. The taste of sawdust in your bread was the taste of a nation consuming itself. The metallic tang of saccharin was the taste of artificial hope. The watery blandness of the Eintopf was the taste of forced conformity. These flavors are woven into the memory of a generation. They are the ghosts that will linger at the German table for years to come. A quiet reminder of a time when a potato was a hero, a cup of coffee was a crime, and a simple spoonful of fat was the most precious treasure in the world. The world outside your window is quiet now. The ghosts of the hunger winter have faded, leaving behind only the gentle, rhythmic sounds of the night. The scent of coffee, real coffee, no longer fills the air with anxiety, but with a quiet sense of peace. The memory of the dense, grey bread has been replaced by the comforting reality of your soft pillow. The long, strange journey through the wartime kitchen is over. You have learned the language of scarcity, the taste of survival, and the profound joy that can be found in a single, simple spoonful of sugar. The anxieties of that time, the constant, gnawing hunger, and the fear of an empty pantry can now recede. They can drift away, like smoke from a chimney on a calm evening, leaving behind only a deep, earned sense of rest. There are no more queues to stand in, no more watery stews to endure. There is only the stillness of your room, the weight of your blanket, and the slow, steady rhythm of your own breathing. Allow the details to blur, the tastes and textures to soften into a single, peaceful sensation of warmth and safety. Let the stories of the past become a soft, distant hum, a lullaby to guide you down into a deep and untroubled sleep. The pantry is full, the night is safe, all is well.